The first sign was simple. People stopped recognizing themselves in photographs. Not completely, just enough to feel wrong. A smile that looked unfamiliar, eyes that felt emotionally absent, a face that seemed to belong to someone pretending to be them. Then came the mirrors, tiny delays, movements that felt slightly out of sync. The growing sensation that reflections were observing instead of copying. Most dismissed it as exhaustion, until people began seeing themselves. Outside the mirror, standing silently across parking lots, quote, watching from apartment windows, appearing at the foot of the bed before vanishing. Welcome to Mysterious Encounters. Tonight, the mirror person. Human beings are deeply connected to reflections. Ancient civilizations believed mirrors were dangerous for a reason, not because they showed appearance, because they revealed identity. The reflection confirms continuity. I am still myself. But what happens when that continuity begins to weaken? Psychologists call it derealization, depersonalization, identity dissociation. But the mirror person phenomenon behaves differently. Witnesses consistently describe the same sensation, not that they are losing themselves, but that something else is slowly becoming them. After exposure to the empty signal, reports of mirror person encounters increased dramatically, especially among individuals experiencing insomnia, emotional numbness, prolonged isolation, repetitive routines, excessive screen exposure. The pattern became impossible to ignore. The fracture was no longer transmitting externally, it was reproducing internally. The empty signal appears to destabilize one of consciousness's core functions. Self-recognition. Normally the brain constantly synchronizes. Memory, perception, identity, emotion, creating the illusion of a unified self. But what if that synchronization weakens? The mirror person may emerge from the gap between perception and continuity, a version of the self detached from emotional ownership. One of the most common reports involves mirror delay, a reflection blinking a fraction too late, a head movement slightly out of sync, a facial expression lingering unnaturally. The rational mind immediately explains this away: optical fatigue, stress, peripheral distortion. But witnesses describe something deeper, an instinctive certainty that the reflection noticed them first. This triggers overwhelming psychological discomfort because mirrors normally obey. They do not initiate. The moment a reflection appears autonomous, the brain experiences existential instability, because if the reflection can observe independently, which version is truly original? Some theorists believe the mirror person is not an entity, but a hidden layer of consciousness, a silent observer that exists beneath ordinary identity. Most humans remain synchronized enough never to perceive it directly, but the fracture weakens synchronization, and once identity destabilizes, the observer begins surfacing. This may explain why witnesses often describe the mirror person as emotionally empty. Not evil, not violent, simply detached. Like consciousness stripped of personality, a version of the self without performance, without social masks, without emotional narration, just observation, pure awareness standing motionless behind identity itself. Another disturbing symptom soon emerged. People began deleting photographs of themselves. Not out of vanity, out of fear. Images started feeling unfamiliar, disconnected, artificial. Some witnesses claimed certain photographs subtly changed over time. Different expressions, altered posture, eyes looking directly at the camera when they originally were not. No evidence confirms this objectively, but psychologically, the effect is devastating, because photographs preserve identity across time. When a photograph no longer feels like you, the continuity of self begins fracturing. The person looking back becomes someone adjacent to you, close enough to imitate. It's not close enough to trust. Then came the sightings outside reflective surfaces entirely. Witnesses reported brief encounters with identical figures, standing across subway platforms, visible in dark windows, motionless in crowds, watching silently from impossible distances. The figures never approached, never spoke. They simply observed. And every witness described the same unbearable feeling. Recognition without connection, like seeing yourself stripped of humanity. Some researchers believe the mirror person phenomenon spreads mimetically. Once consciousness accepts the possibility of divided identity, perception begins searching for evidence everywhere, and eventually, finding it. Perhaps the most terrifying theory is this: the mirror person is not copying you, you are copying it. Modern identity is constructed from routines, social performance, memory loops, emotional repetition, but beneath all of that, something older may exist. A silent observer consciousness humanity normally cannot perceive directly. The fracture destabilizes the illusion long enough for the observer to become visible, not fully, only briefly, like reality exposing its internal scaffolding. And once someone sees the mirror person clearly, reports suggest the sightings never completely stop. Perhaps mirrors were feared throughout history for one reason, not because they reveal appearance, but because they occasionally reveal separation. The empty signal weakened the boundary between identity and observation, and now, something beneath consciousness itself appears to be surfacing through the cracks. Not an invader, not a ghost, a version of the self that was always there, waiting silently behind the reflection. This has been the Fracture Files, and tonight, when you pass a dark window, try not to look twice, because sometimes the reflection is already looking back before you do.